Hello there, sword friends. I was in the midst of some cleaning and I thought I might tell you about a sword that is somewhat new now that I've dressed it up with new clothes, and I liked it more than I expected, so I thought I would make a video sharing it. But anyway, different angle and also a different kind of video because I have no idea, honestly, where the sword originally came from. And I can only speculate on a few things, and I'll tell you why. And if you happen to know more, throw it in the commentary down below. But anyway, story goes that some time ago, I bought this secondhand from someone in the way up north from me, Canada. And it came in, I basically it was in a package of other swords that I was buying, and this happened to not be anything I expected a whole lot from. I did notice that it had some swirly mitsudmoes Manuki, but I knew it was a relatively inexpensive, secondhand, and used katana that the previous owner admittedly said needed some work. But what I got, when I got it, I was actually a little bit surprised. Now it had this handle and it had this blade, and the habaki is the same, but I changed the Tsuba, I changed the saya, I changed the sageo. Those aren't original. I just happen to have some pieces around, and I thought they made it a little bit nicer. The Tsuba that it came with was floral. I had one from a Ronin Dojo Pro that was also mitsudmoes themed and kind of had the same black gloss look that the Fuchikashira had. If I focus on the handle for a moment though, the Fuchikashira looked like they were likely spray painted or something like that. I can't tell, but some of the paint has come off a little bit and I can kind of get a fingernail on it, so I suspect that it was painted some sort of gloss black, or at least that's what I'm speculating. The leather wrap though is different and better than what I've seen on really any production sword. I have no idea what kind of leather it is, but it seems of a very nice quality. And I don't know about the Manuki here. They're mitsudmoes and in a 3 side-by-side mitsudmoes layout, which I've seen in antiques and I've seen replicated from, well, a lot of different Manuki. The Hyper Cafe sells some, Namikawa used to sell some, but I don't recall seeing them in copper before, so that's a little different. Anyway, the handle is a little bit more bulbous shaped, reminds me of Hanwei, but it reminds me of some of the shaping Aaron Justice would do, and I don't know if this was something he rewrapped or not. I really have no idea, but either way, it looks really nice, and it's not a Hanwei blade from what I can tell, but the handle reminds me a little bit of a Hanwei. It has not quite an emperor node, but some larger nodules on one side. I don't know if it's fully wrapped or not, but the leather ito is really, really tight, and it's really nice quality ito, and that was unexpected because I think I bought this blade for under $200 anyway. So, and this ito work is something that you would expect to pay $200 for by itself. So I was really, really surprised by that. Certainly a welcome thing. The Fuchikashira are not anything special, and having them painted is kind of cheap, but having a really nice tight leather wrap made of good leather, that's something special. And it had swirly mitsudmoes on it, so you knew it was calling to me. Anyway, the floral themed Tsuba I changed out. The one from the Dojo Pro that I broke some time ago that had mitsudmoes fitting on it, I took that off and it slid right on and it fit tight. I didn't have to make any adjustments, like it was meant to go on there, which I thought was kind of neat. And I was actually looking for a different saya as well. The one that this came with was a black Ishime saya, and I didn't think anything bad about it, but it wasn't zazzy. And so I had a couple other saya that I actually tried to use. I have one with Samigawa on it. I thought that might be nice, but it's too short. The other swirly mitsudmoes katana that Ryan Sword made me, I had a black saya with various grooves put in it. I thought that was very elegant and nice, but again, that's too short. So I tried this one. This is the saya that honestly I thought I had lost. I didn't think I had this saya anymore, but it was in the pile of things that I brought over when I moved, so it must have been tucked in a corner somewhere. But it's this red saya from the Tenryu katana that I reviewed many moons ago. And it has, more or less it looks like a bright red, but you can see the grain structure of the wood underneath, and then it has what I'm guessing looks like mother of pearl, or I believe that's what it is, some sort of pearl sphere circle inlays that spiral around the sword and give it some zazz. And then I had the sageo in my pile of random sageo, which is black and copper, and I thought the brown kind of meshes with the copper and makes it look okay. Anyway, the saya fits, it doesn't rattle. It did require a little bit of file work. It was too tight, and unfortunately I think I tightened it too quickly, and I can't tell if I cracked the saya or just the paint, but there's a crack in it now. Either way, The tension's pretty good, but it required a little bit of finagling. The sword itself, though, is also pretty nice. It has a really prominent hamon. It has a nice okasaki. The ikote doesn't look burnished, but it looks better done than a lot of the inexpensive swords. The bohi termination, not so great, but an interesting okasaki. And the boshi, the hamon line that goes on the kasaki, transitions into a straight line, which is better rather than some sort of erratic patterning. So I like the overall shape. It has some very nice profile taper to it, and it's very loud and audible. And next to a bunch of stuff where swinging it would not be wise. But anyway, it's also a pretty sword, and it wasn't all scratched up and used, and it was reasonably sharp, and it's stout, but in a good way. The handle's the right size, and it's now in a swirly mitsudmoes style theme. I'm really digging it, and finding some hodgepodge pieces to put together that make the sword a little bit more zazzy. I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. I'm actually pretty happy with the sword. I didn't expect that. Given the amount of swords that I have broken and the amount of random pieces, because I don't tend to offload it or sell it. People ask me about it, and I don't tend to do that. So I have a fair amount of old saya or Tsuba or that kind of thing around. I don't usually do this. It just kind of moved me with a mitsudmoes style Tsuba, because I had one that would match a little better, and that this is also comfortable and like really nice. And so anyway, I ended up with this sword for under $200 and some random parts that I had that I thought is pretty zazzy and cool. And I haven't trained with it yet because I've assembled it while my arm is not at full capacity, so I haven't done much with it. But it feels like it'll be a fun sword to train with and use. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but it's one that I really like. Anyway, I thought I would share that random thought with you. I think this sword is from Pro Swords. That was the thing I should have made mention of. So Pro Sword is not a company that I ever got to deal with, but there were a few folks that had some swords from Pro Sword, which I believe was affiliated with Lath Legend in some way. Anyway, they're sword companies that are no longer around today. But the hamon, the examples that I own from Pro Sword, also had some swirly mitsudmoes fittings on them, incidentally, but it had a very similar kind of crisp looking hamon and an okasaki. And I don't know if this is a Pro Sword, but the polish on it and the okasaki are very similar, as well as the bohi termination to the Pro Sword that I have, or that I had many moons ago. Anyway, those are very small clues to go on. There's no signature on it. The tang is okay looking, but it's not elaborate, unrefined, or very refined. It's pretty par for the course. So it could be any forge in Longquan, China that it came from. But that's my best guess anyway as to where it came from. But I thought I would share the fun assembly that I ended up with a sword that feels pretty good in the hand, and it shows that there's some gems out there if you look for them. I think this was still a good sword before I put the parts on it that I happen to like a little bit more. But if I think about it, the previous Ishime saya was not bad, so subtract the saya. Sageo are relatively inexpensive, easy to change, and a lot of different materials can be used for Sageo. Tsuba are not terribly expensive either. You can often find at least the ones made in China for between $20 and $50. You're a little bit stuck with the handle furniture, and having it rewrapped, this is kind of the zazzy bit of the handle. I haven't seen a forge out of China make handles that are like this, so this this is rather special. The fittings, not so much, but the Ito wrap is actually really nice, which is why I suspect it was done in post and by somebody more reliable, or at least that specializes in rewrapping. It's also only got one Makugi peg, which is usually the pieces made in China have two. It's not a bad thing, but another sign that it was probably redone by somebody. Anyway, the sword itself isn't particularly special, and I imagine a lot of things like this show up on the secondhand market. I happened to be lucky and get one, and it was a fine sword beforehand. So if you're trying to be thrifty, then there are opportunities to get things that you will really like. You just have to have cash in hand and have a little bit of luck to find the right moment or right seller or right time. But they're out there. Deals are out there. This was before I moved a little bit. I want to say during the summer. I originally bought the blade. It certainly came to life though after I zazzed it up with more swirly mitsudmoes. So anyway, I don't remember exactly what the point was of this video other than to show you this thing and say, hey, it's a neat sword. If you know any more about where it might be made or have any guesses, throw it in the commentary below. That's about all I got for this video though. Cheers. Thanks for watching.